If you're tired of losing to people that you know you should beat, then listen up because chess is always completely the same and it'll always put pressure on your opponent, try to force out mistakes, and then punish those mistakes. So I will show you how to do exactly that. If you don't trust me in the previous video, I have already shown you how to calculate through chaos. Me and my opponent basically had a calculation battle, and my opponent basically blundered two pieces in the clutter, and I achieved two pieces up, and I showed you how to convert exactly that. So I hope that was useful. I'm not like the other teachers. Other teachers would just tell you half information and sell you a course on whatever you don't know yet. I just give you everything, so don't worry about that. And I have already taught people from 300 elo all the way up to 1300 plus, so I know what I'm talking about. And I designed these videos so that you can decide if I'm worthy of your subscription. So I have a lot of pressure on this bishop, which is hanging with a check. So I'm thinking about what if I take? I think you will be forced to take my piece. And then if I take your piece, you will take my piece with the pawn and I'm screwed. So if I can take a piece, a pawn, you take a piece with an attack on my queen, I take a piece with an attack on the queen. So now we're equal, I'm up a pawn. If you take my queen, I can take your queen. If you take my piece, you take... So does this work? I take, if you take a piece, I will take a piece with a check and win that every day. That's nothing. But if I can take this, you take a piece, I take a piece. If you save your piece, I will take your queen. So you have to take my queen or my piece. If you take my queen, I take your queen. I'm up a pawn. And if you save your piece, I can save my piece. So after take, 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 if you take my piece, I can take your piece. So I think this works. I think this might work. So again, this is how you calculate true chaos. And you basically look at all the variations, all the possible variations. This is something that a lot of lower elo players do very, very wrong. They only look at one variation, see that it works, and stop calculating there. But you have to go through all of the variations. So I saw maybe I could take a pawn because I make a threat and I make this threat. If you take my piece anywhere, any way you want, I will take your bishop with a check and maybe even capture after this, and then I will be up at least a pawn. So the only variation that I have to calculate is bishop takes. And here, if I take the bishop and you take my piece, I will be down a piece. But I can take this piece, so I have an attack on your queen as well. So now I'm again up a pawn. Both queens are hanging. You take my queen, I take your queen. And now I'm up a pawn. My piece is hanging and your piece is hanging. So if you could move this piece with an attack, probably I would be losing, but now I can capture and I'm up a pawn. To be fair, I'm up a pawn, but my king is completely stuck in the center. So probably this is not even the worst for my opponent. And I now basically have to make sure that my king is safe, which is very difficult. And the way I will do that is by playing with activity. So I want to activate all of my pieces. If I make this pawn break, I open up my rook, I open up my bishop, but low-key my bishop doesn't really have a future. I don't want to put it here and then it's just a massive pawn, and I don't control this. So I will first develop my knight and maybe play the e5 pawn break after, so that after takes I will take with the knight and bully your bishop off of this diagonal so that I can go to the diagonal. And I think that's a tiny but massive difference. It's just a tiny move, developing the knight first so I can recapture, but it makes a huge difference. So now he wants to play c4. You should always think that your opponent has a brain. Sometimes it's difficult to do so, but you should always think they have a brain. And if he plays b3, the only intention of that is by for playing c4 pawn break. The thing is, you are putting more pawns on the wrong color. You have a light squared bishop, so you don't want pawns on light squares. This gives me another pawn. I know it's gonna be a weak pawn, but if you play your pawn break, I can play c5 and try to hold on to the pawn. So now I'm up 2 pawns. You do have a good clamp on f5, to be fair. That is valid. If I push your knight, you will probably get in here. Then I can't really infiltrate. I can only go up a square. You take my bishop, I take back. So that might not work. What if I jump in here with an attack on the knight and the bishop? If you take a pawn back, so I have my knight here, you take back a pawn. I don't really see a threat. So I think I have to give you the bishop. If I do this, you might take here. But that looks like I can trap your knight, I believe. Or do I just want to give up a pawn? You will probably take, I can take, you take back. Can I trap your knight right here? You have to go like this. Then I can attack you again. You go like this. Then I can get my king. Oh, that looks better. That looks better. Let's give up this pawn, but open up a lot of files, and I will take the bishop. So I will be up a pawn and have the only bishop on the board. And the thing is that you can't even deny the bishop trade, which is fantastic. And by the way, you should constantly try to improve your position while making threats. If he just does nothing, I will take the bishop, and you cannot recapture because I will take your knight, and I'm not scared of this exchange. You can trade rooks, I don't mind. So I do have a threat. After take, I will take, you will take, and then I want to look for a way to trap your knight, but maybe it doesn't exist because I can't really take away h5. Maybe something like rook to e5 combined with rook to g5 works. Oh wait, if I take, you just take my rook. I just noticed. Okay, that's annoying. So if I take a piece, you take a rook, and I can't really do much. I miscalculated, to be fair, so I will have to do this first. Minor miscalculation, but it's fine. So now I attack your knight, I attack your bishop, but your knight is hanging and your bishop is not. So you will save your knight, and then I can take your bishop. And now I just save my pawn, I guess, and then activate my pieces. So I'm only up a pawn, and I have a quite bad structure. So you're again attacking a pawn, which is annoying, fair enough. So now I will do this to defend. And I think that's your only threat. If you take the file, I might shut it down. And yes, my bishop will... Oh wait, I also have this. Then I force you to defend. I could maybe attack the rook, which can just go back. Did I achieve something? Maybe not. So what are you threatening? If I go here, then you get in with a check. So let me shut the file first. If I go like this, you attack me, I can blockade your movement. So he owns the open file. So I will just shut the file because it's only his asset. If the open file was mine, I would obviously leave it open, but I cannot even fight for it. So I will just give him the file and don't worry about it yet because it's just shut. He wants the open file because he really wants to infiltrate with the rook. So with the bishop on e6, he doesn't have access to something like e7. I can put my king on c7 and then start making threats of my own. Maybe kicking this knight, so it has to leave. That looks risky. I do have pawn breaks if I can kick your knight. I think what you're trying to do is try to get away with something like this. That is probably what you're trying to do. But I can put my king here. If you push, I can go back and this is still defended. So I think this is totally fine, and I will double up my rooks, make this pawn break. You cannot take with the knight because this. Wow, you go for that. Wait, if I go here, you do this, I can just take the pawn with an attack. So that doesn't work, and your knight is hanging. If you do this, I will break open your king. So I think my opponent miscalculated and thought that he could fork me, but this is actually pinned. And if you give me one more move, I will just take. And you do have takes after. But then I can go to d6 with an attack on your knight, and your knight looks trapped. Yeah, your knight is trapped. It can go to e7 because it's defended with the rook. Okay, that's annoying. But I will have discovery attacks, but you attack my rook. Hmm. I don't know, it's chaotic. So I can just take this. I don't know. He miscalculated that. After this, yeah, I will attack your knight. You can move in here. I take a rook, you take a rook, and I can take your piece. So after I take your rook, yeah, this is a nice tactical opportunity. So your knight is trapped. And I think oh, you can go here, but then your rook is hanging still. So I think you have to go to e7, attacking my rook and my bishop. But I can, by the way, first of all, take this with a check. Second of all, I can take your rook while my rook is hanging. But if you take my rook, I can recapture the rook with a check. Yeah, so I can take this. I can take this with a check. So if I take with the bishop and you do this, I can take your rook with a check. You can take and I can recapture, and I'm totally fine. If I take this and you just move, I don't know what I gained. So I think I'll take with the bishop because I'm still setting up tactics. Um, I can do this with a check. So you are forced to take. I can take. And wait, your knight is hanging. I can just take your knight. My opponent completely miscalculated, and that is something I have to teach you as well. Play confident and don't trust your opponent. It's not because he played an aggressive move very, very fast that it does work. My opponent is almost 1900, just blundered the knight in one move. My rook is totally defended. If you take, I will have a discovery check. So now I'm up a lot of material. And I don't know what he's even trying to do. I'm up a piece and two pawns. So the way to convert a position like this is simply by... Maybe I should first shut the file. But the plan here will be to make a passed pawn. So now I have a winning position. And what I always teach you is that you should try to first have a winning position and then convert your winning position into a win condition. A win condition is a way to simply win the game by, and there are only two win conditions in the game of chess, which makes it a bit more easy. The first is a checkmating attack because the game will only end in checkmate. Because the game can only end two ways. It is either with a checkmate or by convincing your opponent that you will checkmate them and then they just resign. So, a checkmating attack is the first win condition, and the second win condition is um, a passed pawn. Because if you promote a passed pawn, you will probably find a way to checkmate your opponent. So I took this pawn with the bishop so that I have the win condition of the passed pawn. My opponent cannot enter anywhere, which is fantastic. So now a a way to push my passed pawn would be fantastic, but I guess that doesn't exist yet. So I will just shut the king in a cage because first of all, activating your king is a very important thing in a endgame. So I already told you that doing something good is always nice, but doing the opposite for your opponent is as strong. So I just deactivated my opponent's king, and Loki, you can have this pawn. I don't care. You can also just give a check and push my king forwards. I do not care. I will promote. You can give me a check from behind. I will just maneuver behind my pawn. And I have 14. Oh, I cannot do that. Now I have 30 seconds to find a checkmate, which is not ideal, to be fair. But I will just give up everything to make it more easy. You can take this, take my bishop, and I will be able to promote my pawn. Uh, he's trying to find counterplay, but there is no counterplay to be found. So let me just promote. Put your king inside of a cage, and then I will just be able to ladder mate you. And that's it. So that should be game. Let's see what my opponent does or tries to do. Does he resign? Does he just leave it there? I hope that was very instructive and I had won your subscription and convinced you that I actually teach you instructive things. Let's see what my opening course has to say. Other chess teachers always tell you that you should only understand your openings, and that is because they want you to basically suck at your opening, and then they sell you an opening course. And that's always what I see. They first will tell you the poison of you shouldn't memorize your openings because that is what you want to hear, but that's not what you actually need. You need to actually memorize your openings. I have everything memorized until here. To be fair, I don't really have much memorized in this opening. But I mean, I just know the plans from here. So I have memorized until move 3, which is quite bad. And then I just understand my opening. So I should have brought out the queen, apparently. And if you develop this knight. If you kick the knight, I know to maneuver back. And I know to go for a pawn break. So my opening wasn't perfect, but I just understand my opening and I will always submerge into a position that I know and that I'm comfortable in because I memorize the beginning and then I understand the opening. So, this course, by the way, has a lot of very, very deep sample lines, not for you to memorize, but for you to have a look at so that you understand your plans, understand your win conditions, understand how to go to a winning position and understand how to put pressure. And obviously, you have all of the beginnings to memorize. So, my opening wasn't the best, to be fair, but let's see what Stockfish has to say. So, this is a book move. I have the wrong. Yes, like this. So, this was a book move. What Stockfish thinks of the game is I played at 91% accuracy with a brilliant move. That is disgusting. So After e4, c6, just opening. I know that after f3, I have to play e6. That is my opening course. He develops the knight, and here my course says queen to b6. I did do the wrong line. And after a kick, I go back, as I told you, and then I fight for the c5 pawn break. So my opponent didn't do that. He tried to pin my knight in order to attack it, but I just unpin, and apparently that is a mistake. I should go for this, and the way I could have found this is because I know this exists in other lines. A lot of the times, if you play a opening, you will have the same moves in different positions. That is why it's important to memorize a lot of your openings and then understand what's after it so that you just know what to do. So, yeah, I could have found this if I knew my course a bit better, but instead I unpin like this, and you bring your bishop to d3. I kick your bishop, which is bad. I could already have taken, and after it takes, we just go for the exact same position. Except I haven't played h6 yet, and you haven't moved your bishop. But the point is that after h6, you could have gone back or you could have taken. I already had the tactic, but I didn't see it here. And after you move back, I saw that I aligned this with a check. So if I move my knight, you're forced to take. But in this situation, it's the exact same thing, except I'm threatening to take this, but without a check. But we will never go into lines here where I take and then you take back and I take and the check matters. Like the check doesn't really matter because the tactic will stop there anyway. So I could have taken instantly, didn't see it. Now I took with a brilliant move, which is funny. You take, I take this, which is a great move. If I were to take the bishop, you take my knight. But you do have to think that I already lost a piece because you took a bishop while I took a pawn. So I have to take a piece with another attack on the queen. You take, I take, you take, I take. And I got a brilliant move and a lot of great moves here, which is insane. So that was very, very difficult, but we got there. And now I have to convert this position up a pawn. How I do this is by understanding win conditions. Win conditions, again, a way to win the game, either a checkmate attack or a passed pawn. And in this position, the situation is very, very closed. I don't have a lot of activity. All of my pieces are on their home square, and my king cannot castle, but I have an extra pawn. So everything is pointing towards make a passed pawn, but first I have to activate my pieces. So I activate and I activate my pieces because my opponent is down a pawn, and the way to convert a position using win conditions is the same for counterplay. So my opponent is down a pawn, so the only way he will win this position is by either making a passed pawn and promoting the passed pawn, even though I have more material, or by just checkmating my king. And probably the latter will be his plan because making a passed pawn when I haven't even lost one pawn yet will be very, very difficult. So I make a pawn break to open up my bishop, get my knight forward, open up my rook. You don't take, which is probably a good call. I would say that after something like take and take, I will already win your bishop. So you have to do this. I will take. You probably take with the rook to try and make a pawn break and go for a checkmate. And this situation is way easier for me. I can just develop. You will have to move back. I can move my king. I can double up the rooks. And now all of a sudden, all of my pieces are very, very active. And I have a queenside majority, and my king is very close to the queen side. Kingside is very symmetrical, so you will never make a passed pawn here. I will make pawn breaks and start pushing, and my king is already very, very close to escort my passed pawn, and my pieces will be active in like 2 moves. So I have this fantastic position. I will start a majority attack, make a passed pawn, and use my king to promote and win the game very, very easily like that. So to be fair, sacrificing this pawn, in my opinion, is a good move, and as you saw, taking it is not good. So you go in, and this is another inaccuracy. I should have passively defended, but I much prefer to give up a pawn and have a lot of activity. But to be fair, I moved the rook here just to move it back, so maybe that didn't really make sense. And I took the bishop, and just like that, this is an equal game, which is quite insane, but this is an inaccuracy. You should have instantly made this pawn break, because if I take, you take with a check. You will win another pawn. I do have a passed pawn, but it's very difficult to defend. So let's say take. I do this. I defend. This is, by the way, already a blunder because this is a fork and you attack a pinned piece. So that is a very nice way of losing a piece. So I have to move my king. You can take. I will not be able to defend this. And now all of a sudden I am down a pawn. I can force you to trade rooks. So now I have a queenside majority, but a kingside minority. But you can just attack my pawn and I can't defend it. So after this and takes, I'm actually down a pawn, which is insane that yeah, I just blundered that. So taking is bad, but he didn't find a way to convert. I just defended my pawn, you activated your pieces, and here bishop to e6 the best move. So it's always try to activate, but also try to keep your opponents passive. I cannot fight for the E file, so I will just shut it down so that you cannot use it. I control E5, I control E4, I control E3. And if you put your rook on E2, you always have to be careful of this light square diagonal. And I just blockade everything here so that you cannot infiltrate. If I did something else, I already have to be careful for the holes in my position. So that's how I found this best move. It is just trying to activate my pieces while keeping my opponent's pieces passive. He has the open file, so just shut the file. And he plays g4, best move. I put my king on c7, the best move, because I now get out of the way of this knight's tactics. You can take this with a check, but it's well defended. You can go to e8 with a check, but that's well defended. And I just make my rook more active. This is a mistake. This is a great move. So I just blunder a fork, but you can't actually do it because I just have takes. Apparently the engine wants me to take, and probably take. Because now I already have a passed pawn, I can activate my rook and I'm up 2 pawns. But I do have to say he does have a kingside majority, and that is how he can find counterplay. So this is again the same exact thing that I said. I have a passed pawn, which is my win condition, but he has a kingside majority, which is a winning position while losing. So if you have a winning position while losing, you should invest in that in order to make a win condition and use that win condition as counterplay. If my opponent plays this out very slowly, I will put a rook behind this pawn, push the pawn, push the pawn. This rook will have to move. Then I can probably just push the pawn to push this pawn after take and take, push the pawn, take and take. I have connected past pawns. I will attack the rook, has to slide, attack the rook, take the pawn, and promote. That's the game. There is nothing that will happen in this game except for that, and I will just obliterate him. So my opponent cannot play slow. He either has to win back the material that he lost, but that is very difficult because my king is active, can defend all of my weaknesses. My rook is active, so it can support my push. And this rook controls the only open file, which is very active. So my opponent will not be able to win 2 of these pawns at all. My opponent will not be able to checkmate my king because I control the only open file, so he cannot infiltrate. So his only hope is basically make a passed pawn, push it, and pray to God. That's it. So I would expect from my opponent something like a4. I would probably activate my king, something like g5, take and take. Now you have a passed pawn. I will attack it. You can defend it. And yeah, probably my best move is just to instantly win that pawn because this is his counterplay. If I just wait a bit, he might just, let's say I want to push this pawn. You already take the open file. Now I'm down in activity. If I start just investing in this passed pawn, you can already infiltrate. And as long as I blockade your passed pawn, it will probably be fine. But the problem is that now I have an entire rook stopping a stupid pawn. That doesn't make sense. So I would already be forced into a lot of passive moves, and maybe he finds a way to find counterplay there. So I just wanted to shut that down. So I go for not giving him a majority, and after you take the pawn, king to d7, a forcing move. And I was expecting him to play this, supported by the rook, attacking my rook and attacking my bishop. But the thing is that if I save my rook, yes, you will take, but I can take with a check first of all. Second of all, I wanted to take the rook actually, because if you take my uh, I want to take your rook because if you take my rook, I can recapture your knight with the bishop that was hanging. And now my hanging bishop is gone. I'm up a pawn and a bishop. This is symmetrical enough so that you cannot make a passed pawn. If you push and you push, I will take, and now these two pawns stop each other. And I will just push these pawns so that I create a passed pawn. After I have a passed pawn, I will push my king, I will activate my rook, infiltrate to the second, infiltrate to the first, and just push the pawn like that, because that is how I would convert with a extra passed pawn. So my opponent, after take and take, king here just attacks the bishop, but I can take with the best move. Because now I'm just setting up tactics, my opponent gives a check, but I can just take a knight. Now I'm up a piece and two pawns. You just trade, but this gives me a king side majority and a queen side majority. So now I can push two winning positions with an extra piece to a win condition. So I just go out of the way with an attack, trying to keep his rook passive. I really thought he would play rook to e7 to be fair, but that's the best move. Activating my rook is the best move. I slide my bishop out over the way with a check to activate my rook, so I can activate my rook. I go for this pawn because if I win the c pawn, my d pawn becomes a pass pawn, which is a win condition. You push, I take, I take. Now I have two passed pawns, so I make your king very passive. I make your king even more passive. I make your king quite passive. Now, to be fair, maybe I gave too much checks, but now his rook and his king are located on the king side, and I will push two passed pawns. And the only thing he can try is win both of these and push his own passed pawn, but that's way too slow. So I can just sacrifice a pawn and push. And now I wanted to promote, but he can actually just take, so that would have been a blunder. But I can move the bishop, move my king, and now promote. And after take and take and take, yes, I did sack my bishop, but I'm low on time. So I just want the easy endgame and just checkmate him by locking him in a cage, best move, and now I can just ladder mate him. After this, I will just deliver checkmate. So if you learned anything, subscribe. If you want more of this, there are way more videos like this on my channel. And other than that, have a nice day, and I will see you in the next one.